Ready? Okay. Is it going? Okay, so good evening and welcome to the October 2nd, 20.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to the October 2nd, 2025 Ways and Means Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Gold. Here. Alderman Gould.
Here.
Alderman Erger is absent. Alderwoman Tice.
Here. That brings us on to approval or amendment of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Seeing any opposition to having it approved by acclamation? Seeing none, it will be so approved. This brings us on to citizen comments. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the committee? You have up to 3 minutes, and come give your name and address. Is there anyone online?
Will they
No
have,
one's online.
No one's
they
online.
have ability for the citizen budget forum?
And there's also a citizen budget forum, so there's a separate area where you can speak, but this is just if you want to speak on anything. But since there's no one here, we will move on to report of committee chair and alderman. I have no report. Alderwoman Goad. No report. Alderman Gould.
No report other than we usually can see this TV monitor is off. I don't know if that's, typically we can see who's. Okay.
Okay,
So,
but it's being recorded.
so when we have presenters though, we just won't be able to see them? Okay, thank you.
Okay, then that brings us to item 5, the city administrator's report. Ola.
Thank you, Alderwoman Tice. The first item on here is just a recap of the proposed budget timeline. And so I'll just jump to today, where we have scheduled overview of the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget. We'll discuss the fund balance policy, give an overview of that, the different funds, general fund, capital improvement fund, the equipment replacement fund, the stormwater parks improvement fund, sewer lateral, economic development, sales tax, and then there will be a presentation on just the entire budget overview, operations and capital, and then we will go into each department presentation. So tonight, we have scheduled IT. Larry Covey is here. Planning and Development, we have Whitney, Kelly, and then I'm going to cover the balance. I'm going to cover municipal court, I'm going to cover administration, community services, municipal operating expenses, and legislative. And then on October 28th, we continue with departmental presentations, Parks and Recreation, Public Works. Also on that agenda, we have carryover items from the last meeting, which will be the vehicle replacement policy and then the vehicle commuting policy. And I believe we have one new item that will also be added to that agenda. And hopefully, on November 6th, we will have fire and police give their presentation. And possibly at that point, if the committee is ready, a recommendation can be made to the Board of Aldermen. We will post for the public hearing, and then November 17th will be the first reading, and December 1st will be the second reading and hopefully the adoption of the budget. And then we have one more meeting this year, December 4th. And so we can either find things for the committee to discuss, or you all can take a reprieve after having all these special meetings. So just an overview of the timeline for the remainder of the proposed budget process.
Thank you. And that brings us to the Citizen Budget Forum portion of the meeting and of the year. So this is an opportunity for citizens to come and express and share any ideas they have of things that Brentwood should fund or focus on this year or in the future. So if there's anyone here to comment. Oh, please, yeah, please come to the microphone and just introduce yourself and give us your address.
I'm new here. Well, I've lived in the city for like 4 years, and I am a participant in the super lateral program. So I am curious if you've thought about increasing that amount, because currently it's only $3,500 for the year, and there's a lot of old pipes in Brentwood that are starting to deteriorate. I can just speak for myself and my experience. $3,500, while it was amazing to have, it did not cover much of my bill to replace everything. So bringing that to the forefront, even doubling that would help because as you all know, that my property and my pipes, I'm responsible for. So, yeah. Any feedback there?
Well, do you want me to take this, or so one of the, it's actually something we could consider. The fund got into a negative because it's funded by a $50 property
Yes.
tax on every home. So there's
Yes.
only so much, there are only so many funds. And the fund got into a negative and was borrowing money from the city, which it's not, like, the city then has replenished, or this fund has replenished the funds that the city had loaned it over the years. So now we're just back to even, and we're getting a little bit of a surplus, so I think it's something that we could talk about, but I think doubling it would then take the fund into deficit, and the $50 per year is something set by the state legislature, so we couldn't ourselves decide to
increase that.
increase that. It's
Yeah.
a state legislative thing, but good.
Yeah.
But can you tell us your name and address just for the record?
Yeah,
So we
hi,
have- okay,
Michelle Sarnowski, SARNOSKY, 8924 Pine Avenue, Brentwood, Missouri, 63144. Thank you for that insight. It's good to know that we are not negative anymore.
Yes, yes.
But I can't speak for anyone else, but if the state were to raise it even to $100 a year, I would pay it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay.
okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, and I'll just also throw out, and I'll mention to Mayor Dimmitt, he is involved with the St. Louis County Municipal League and the Municipal League statewide, and so this might be something that he could take to Jeff City and, or just talk to his other fellow mayors and see if this is something that is being considered. So thank you for bringing that forward, and sometimes things change slowly, but we can definitely look at that. So thank you. Anyone online?
I don't have anyone online.
Okay, great. Then that moves us on to department reports. First, we have the investment report. And Michelle, are you taking this? Oh, we can't see, so Brad must,
I hear he's online.
okay. Hi, Brad, we can,
I'm here.
okay, good, we can hear you and everything. Okay, great.
Hello. Good to see you all again. Okay, you guys have the same or very similar document that I provide each month. And you see at the very bottom of page 1, that number stays consistent. All the money that has been earned in each of the various accounts since we started to January of 24, 2.7 million, and then all of last year, 728,000. So far this year, we're at $553,000. And I'm delighted to tell you that when you add those three numbers together, we have just crossed over $4 million in interest earnings for the city since we started working together towards the end of 2018, almost exactly to the year. So that's pretty cool. 4,027,271 if we're exact. So all to help the city and go towards all the much needed endeavors of the city. Page 2 gives you kind of a month-to-month chart of approximate earnings each month. Again, we're at 553 for the year, and that gives you an average of about $61,000 per month. And I'll give you a little bit of an update on the market, because I always like to do that a little bit. I've been talking a lot with you all about the Fed funds rate. Well, they did lower the Fed funds rate 1/4 point 2 weeks ago. You probably saw that in the news. And so that will affect money market rates all around. In addition to that, there is a 95% chance that the Fed futures market is building in that they're going to lower it again at the end of this month, 95%. And then there's another meeting in December, the last meeting this year. The Fed futures market is building in an 89% chance that they will lower it another 1/4 point. So if they do that, all of those, it'll be 3/4 of a point, 0.75% reduction in any money that we have sitting in cash. So it's a wonderful thing that you all have this money invested and have had it that way. And we'll just keep on getting it invested and doing the best that we can for the city.
Any questions for Brad? We don't see any. Thanks again. We enjoy your reports every month and like to see the results, so thank you.
Wonderful. Thank
Okay.
you all for having me.
Oh, yeah. Now it's time for the financial statements. This is Michelle.
I would like to follow up on some of the things that Brad said. I know that we've been talking about the FEMA SEMA funds and sort of replenishing some of those funds that we've taken out of investments. I'm happy to report that Eric has gotten some notification that we are sort of in the final stages of that and hoping to receive those funds in the near future. So
Wow,
yeah.
congratulations,
So
especially
hopefully
to
we'll have the
Eric.
discussions about actually receiving those funds and then sort of replenishing and putting those funds back in that ladder, and then replenishing the ones that we have asked for recently. So that's good news on that.
Yes.
I'm sure Brad will be glad to hear that as well. In your packets, you actually have the August financial statements. And the highlights and lowlights, I know that in the August financial statements, it continues to say that it's 5% below in sales tax. We're going to have this conversation. If you put in the 415,000 that sits as that adjustment, we actually are 5% above. So that above where we were at the same time last year. And then it sort of also says that the use tax is currently trending higher than the same time last year as well. So the 415, once again, is not rolled up in that number because of it being placed as an adjustment from the disbursement from St. Louis County. But it is the sales tax that was collected from the closure of the TIF. And now we're collecting it at 100%. But so it sort of is that misnomer. I thought about actually just moving it all up into sales tax. But once again, when audit comes, it needs to be placed in the adjustment category. But it is actually 5% above at the same time. I know that we're all watching that closely, having those conversations, and even sort of trying to decide how do we start to put the budget together based upon the things that we know. And we're going to dive into the budget later, but the budget is really at a 1% growth, and that our sister cities are doing the same despite the trends of where we're at today. So back to August, there aren't any real high highs or low lows unless you have any sort of immediate questions on that. I think sales tax is sort of the one that looks like that misnomer, but the 415,000 of that account that holds those adjustments and settlements belongs in the sales tax.
So I have one question. So next year, once those adjustments have been made, because they're coming a different way from St. Louis County right now, will they be coming the normal?
The collections are already being collected at 100%
At 100% right now.
So then that 415 will actually show in the collections as we continue to move forward. Yes.
Okay, so we
Yes.
won't have this
No,
odd
we
thing
won't
next
have
year.
it sitting in two separate accounts. No, because they have closed and reconciled the TIFs. I believe we closed two of them. And they were reconciling those items. So we won't have any of those.
Okay, great, thank you. Alderwoman Gould? I was going to get through this whole meeting, except when Jeff answered to the wrong name, I can.
I'm giving
Alderwoman
you permission.
Gould.
Everybody else.
I had a question about the rental property line.
Yes, ma'am.
When does it, I know it's not in August, but it's starting in September. Do we start seeing the payment on the public
Yes,
works
in
rental?
September, you'll actually see it increase, and we actually got first and second month's rent. So that will be noted in there. So yes, and then that's sort of why we did the adjustments for the budget, noting that rent, at least for the year, and I believe into the second year as well, just knowing
Okay.
what we know at the moment.
Perfect. So that's when it will pop up is next month.
Yes, you'll see it in September. And like I said, it will be double the payment because it's first and last month's rent, and then it'll start to even itself out as well.
Okay. Thank you.
I had one number that jumped out to me was the plumbing permits that were so much higher in revenue. I think I saw in your analysis was because it was a big project, but this is not, do we think that this is something we need to budget for an increase of revenue or?
We met with all of the department heads and sort of had those conversations, and I think that some of those permits are unpredictable. So
Yeah.
when meeting with planning and development, and Whitney is more than welcome to speak on this, she didn't feel comfortable sort of thinking that would be the
Adjusting
trend.
it, yeah. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, that takes us to the consent
Oh,
agenda.
you know what, I did have one more question.
Sorry.
Minor thing, really minor. The expenses, the revenue and expenses for the tree plaques or something like that. Is that I'm sorry, I had a question and then I didn't write it down. It's in the, I think
Park stormwater?
the parks,
Uh-huh.
is that basically just kind of a wash that we look at that, like donations for
I'm going to let Eric
plaques
speak
and
on
all
that.
that, and then
I-
the
yeah.
expenses of it, we're
We're definitely not generating
Yeah.
revenue and gains on it.
I just
mean,
want to make
it's
sure
based
that,
upon
that
the
we're,
analysis.
if there's an increase of expenses and we haven't adjusted the fee for that, you know.
Yeah, and this is line, I just clicked on it, it's in Fund 50, it's 50, it's like 3 down, and I clicked.
Yeah, so that is part of our tree and bench program.
Yes, that's what
Obviously,
it's called.
the plaques are a small expenditure, which is about $45 a piece. And obviously, we have a little bit more in trees and benches. I'll let you know that this year, we just did a review of the tree and bench program. We actually increased both the trees and the benches due to expenditures that we were receiving to make sure it was still a beneficial program.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I was interested in, just making sure somebody was watching expenses and the cost of the program. Yep.
So now we'll move on to the consent agenda. There are 3 sets of minutes from July, August, and September. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes? Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No, so approved. Moving on to new business, the overview of the 2026 budget. Ola, is this Eric?
Eric is presenting. that.
Great, Eric.
All right, so this is just going to be a quick overview of the budget. Obviously, as we move into departmental budget reports, they'll do a more intense review of their budgets, but this just kind of gives a general overview of the whole budget. So the kind of first start of 2026 budget, as always, we do have a balanced budget, so all of our funds meet the fund balance policy. In addition to that, so we're quite. You know, this only happens when Larry's here.
Larry, it actually happens when you're not here too.
In my defense, it was working.
It was there.
It was there.
There we
It
go.
started to fade.
It was kind of grayed out, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. In my defense, I come early to make sure it's working, and I should have known that with Larry here. Let's start this again. Is it up?
And our
Okay,
side,
good.
it's only up over
As
here.
long as you guys can see it. So there is a 5.6% increase in citywide revenue. If you look at all the revenue, that's driven by really 2 main factors. There's a 25% increase in Fund 40, which is a capital fund, and that's related to the Hanley Road TDD. That is just a tax district that's paying off that we will then be using for streets, for street work. And then there's about a 7% increase in Parks and Recreation in Fund 50, and that's related to 2 main reasons. Fees and charges were increased that were approved at the Public Works meeting, and then also every 2 to 3 years, we shut down the ice rink. That takes away 4 to 6 weeks of operation. We did that this year, so obviously next year we're back to full year of operation, so we have more revenue there. The other thing that was done this year that HR and Finance did an itemized review of each department for benefits. So they basically went employee by employee to make sure the benefits were appropriate for that employee. And that did create changes to the benefit lines. And if you see, a lot of times It's strange to see benefits decrease from year to year. It was strange to me, strange to Michelle, but that's the reason why, is that itemized review that they did. In addition, in the budget is reclassification of 2 positions. One is the city planner position for planning and development. Whitney will be speaking to that tonight. And also there's a reclassification of in the police department of a position up to corporal. And the budget includes things like the comprehensive logo and branding development of the design for that, the complete construction for the fire training facility, and then also we have funding for the public works and park maintenance facility design. This just gives the general overview. That's kind of page 25, 26 in the budget book. The basic thing that just shows the fund, our beginning fund, ending fund balance, and kind of just shows that we are meeting the fund balance. As you see, specifically in the general fund, we're at a 63% operating reserve by the end of 2026 estimated. And I might not have the right page exactly, but I know it's around there. Capital Improvement Fund and the Stormwater and Parks Improvement Fund, you'll see one new line this year, which is the Equipment Replacement Reserve. So I made sure to kind of highlight that. And what we're happy to say is that, we started that Equipment Replacement Reserve, and we're working toward making sure it's implemented and fully funded. So that means taking some money each year and making sure it goes into that reserve so that we have money in, this year to buy a fire truck, or next year to buy a fire truck, and that we have that money already so that we're not having to lease anything or take out debt for those type of things. So Sewer Improvement Fund, you guys already talked about, and then the Economic Development Fund, it still continues to make somewhere between $200,000 and $225,000 each year in net profits. So you see that kind of increase over that $3 million mark this year, and up to about 3.5 in 2028. Just quick talk about the revenue sources. Obviously, as you guys know, we are sales tax driven. 57% of all of our revenue comes in from sales tax. It is by far the largest piece of the pie. Those other sources, a lot of those different things, not only in the general fund, but in rec and stormwater, and all those different things. So it really goes sales tax, then fees and charges, investment income. Those are kind of the biggest pieces of that pie. Conversely, in expenditures, again, not a surprise, it is personnel. And we've talked about this for a few years now. So personnel is the largest chunk, followed quickly behind, real closely behind a couple areas, which is debt service. Obviously, we have the debt we need to pay off from Brentwood Bound and the capital COP, and as well as material and supplies, which is the basic material and supplies that each department needs to run day-to-day operations. So the highlights in the general fund, you do see a 2.2% increase. We are very conservative. Michelle even mentioned that tonight. So a conservative 1% increase on most taxes, license, and permits, just to make sure that we feel comfortable with the revenue coming in. The big increases that you saw is the rental property line, and that's obviously because of the lease agreement at 288 Hanley. A 70% increase in trash pickups, and that's due to the new process for collecting household pickup fees, so that's exciting. And a 38% increase in fines is just due to larger enforcement of traffic fines as we move throughout the year. Some highlights for expenses, people will touch on these, but just kind of the basic ones. In the admin department, you'll see that reduction in employee benefit, and that's that itemized review that was done. The funds are allocated for branding and development. And then another one is kind of that newsletter cost, and that was kind of increased because of printing and postage. We kind of saw it this year. I want to make sure it was in the budget for next year. The fire department, you do see the reduction in employee benefits again. And then the training costs are reduced because of the completion of the Central Kohler training facility and the credit they receive because of that. And then you see the uniform decrease in 1 year in 2026 because that PPE replacement is being funded through Fund 40 of the capital fund. So in planning, we talked about the code enforcement position already, and then also increased legal fees due to ongoing code enforcement and zoning cases, making sure that we have enough funding for that. Police, we talked about the retail liaison officer being promoted to corporal. The one thing that does is eliminate the need for shift officer pay. So you'll see that zeroed out in next year's budget. And then the other thing of note is kind of the locker room shower renovation. Those materials and supplies are being funded through the asset forfeiture fund. That's what could be funded through that fund. And so that's what you'll see in the budget. And then public works remains consistent pretty much year to year. The biggest change is always kind of forestry, and that depends on which ward. So we went from Ward 4, which has the least amount of trees, to Ward 1, which has the most amount of trees. That's the big difference of that right there. Capital, we've talked about the increase in revenue is primarily because of the Hanley Road TDT payout. You'll see, like we talked about already, the sales tax is a conservative 1%. You do see increase in sales city property, and that's because we're going to be selling the fire truck this year. So we think we'll see a bump in that because of that one-time purchase, and I think we go back down. Expenditures, again, the equipment replacement reserve is fully implemented, and what's in that reserve program this year is the fire engine for the fire department, police cruiser and the handheld radios for the police department, and 4 trucks in the public works department. There's other small capital expenditures. We talked about the PPE for the fire department, things like that. All those are not contained within the ERR, but we do still have the funding for that. And then we still have funding for streets, and we're looking at the mill and overlay of Eager Road and concrete slabs of Collier, Hanley, Industrial Court, and Eulalie. So stormwater parks, we talked about the 7.8% increase already due to fees and charges in the full rink. A couple things of note, the ice rink does hit the $1 million mark in revenue for the first time ever, so we're kind of excited about that. You do see rental revenue increase 14%, fees and charges, and both the pavilion, the Brentwood Park main pavilion and the playground pavilion still continue to be very popular. We're still getting people renting it out in November, December, even though it's colder and they don't have the water feature just because they want to be out there for a rental. Program revenue, we do see kind of overall about a 5% increase. There's a lot of variation this year and for a lot of reasons. I know that got emailed out to you guys, so I won't bore you guys tonight. I'll bore you guys on October 28th with that. And one thing we did put in is $410,000 for grant revenue. We've been applying for a grant for the Hanley Park Pavilion and parking lot project. We feel pretty good about being able to get that. I will say, as I say to most people, I won't put funding in for grants if I don't think I'm going to get it. And if we don't get it, then we'll have to kind of readjust because we won't have full funding for that project. And last is OCA Mine Prop S. Dan had talked to MSD, and we expect to see about $239,000 in revenue this year if we want to use it. So that goes to expenditures. We allocate another $250,000 to the Brentwood Park Maintenance Liquidity Fund. That brings that balance up to $500,000. A little bit plus. We have to talk to Michelle about some interest earned on that, but primarily we're seeing that year after year. We'll be funded by the end of 2028 with that full $1 million that we want to have to help start that fund. We ensure that the equipment replacement reserve is fully funded. It took us that 3 years to kind of get there. We are putting away about $150,000 each year of our revenue into that fund to make sure we fully fund that and that we have all of that ready to go for future projects. And then we do have some funding this year for some stormwater master plan projects. I know Dan's working on those, and that funding will be there for that. The last thing to talk about for me is a little bit about capital. Again, I'll talk more next meeting, but the basics is that as we talked about when we started Brentwood Bound, is that capital was going to be tight for a few years, and we've got to that point now in Parks and Recreation. We do have that Hanley Park Pavilion project for this year. And we think if we get that grant, we'll be able to fund that project and move forward with that. And then in 27, 28, we only have about $90,000 left in our fund. And usually what we have left in our fund is for capital. So what we're going to do is kind of bank that money over a couple of years. And then when we have enough money to move forward with the project, we'll move forward using our capital plan. But most likely we're looking at phase 1 of Mount Calvary. It's kind of what we're earmarking it for right now. That takes us just to the budget schedules. We're here tonight, as you see everything. The 28th, you'll hear from Parks and Public Works. And again, as Bola talked about, we hope that we can move forward on November 6th, and then we'll be able to kind of approve the budget with the Board of Aldermen on December 1st. So again, a brief overview, really kind of the top end highlights, and you'll be hearing from a lot of people over the next couple meetings.
Are there any questions for Eric about the big picture things? Alderwoman Goad.
First, great presentation, and thank you for the conservative approach, especially with everything going on with Target opening in U City, so that's awesome. I did have one question about the newsletter costs. in addition to postage and printing costs going up, is there any concern about the fact that the Pulse is going away? And so is there a thought about how if we're
Not-
going to need to increase printing to get word out?
I mean, I don't think we're concerned about that in that line. That would become more in advertising.
Okay.
And so some of our advertising dollars that we use have gone to the Pulse for the ads of everything that we do. I know that Michelle and Bola are looking into other options of how we get those things out.
Right, so, go ahead.
You can.
You're the chair.
We've talked about this at the Communications Committee meeting, and we believe that we can publish things in the county end, right?
The county.
The county end, and fulfill the requirements that we have for things that we don't necessarily need to put in things like the minutes every time, like we did with the Pulse. So I don't think we're going to need to see an increase of it. We have an outlet for it that's legally available to us. So I think that's where we are.
I mean, we're also looking at the Kirkwood Webster
Yeah,
Times, so we have that as well. But like Alderman Gould said, we are not going to be publishing the meeting minutes like we did. There's no requirement to do it in the city code, but in the code, there is a requirement to publish quarterly the financial statement, so we will continue to do that. But if we need to advertise for recreation programs, or a fire open house or things like that, we might use that avenue. So I think we're going to stay within the budget that's in the document.
So I have one big picture thing, and it may be something that needs to punt to the Public Works Committee, but thanks to our wonderful comment today, I really focused on the Sewer Improvement Fund, and we actually are replenishing it at this moment. So I'm wondering if we could ask Dan or Bola if we could look at increasing that a little. I know we wouldn't increase it a lot, but there are some leftover funds each year, and maybe even if it was just a few $100s on those homes that need lateral sewer work, that might be something to do. But I would imagine it would be something that the Public Works Committee might need to dig into to see if that makes sense. So I know this has been a long, arduous issue. So. Okay, great. Since we have the chair of that committee here, looking at Alderman Lockmuller. Okay, thank you. Oh,
I did
Alderman
have the OMCI funds that seem, and Prop S, it seems like maybe more revenue than we anticipated. I think it was 160-something thousand that we expected.
And I'll let Dan correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we were under the assumption that the OCMI would go away with Prop S, and it turns out that we're going to be able to collect both of those. So that's why we see that increase in OCMI. And
Yeah, it was like a quarter percent. It had been adjusted for the OMCI. Okay,
those numbers came straight from MSD.
okay, perfect, thank you.
other big picture questions?
Great.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. So moving on, are we doing them in order? So we'll move on to IT, and Larry Covey is here. See if his IT works.
Note this monitor doesn't work.
Not aware of that, so I already sent myself an email to check on that tomorrow. Hello, I'm Larry Colvey. I'm from the IT department, and I'm just here to present the IT budget for fiscal year '26. We'll start with some of our accomplishments, our projects we did this year. We're currently in the process of implementing a new cloud-based phone system in the city. We implemented 2 new network firewalls that protect the city from the public internet. We assisted the police department with implementing a new body and in-car video system this year. Brentwood Park, we had to implement a new video surveillance server there. It's actually an additional one due to more cameras being installed from when that project first started. We weren't able to keep 30 days of recording, so we had to basically give more those recordings for 30 days. We're working with Dan to possibly implement fiber into the new Public Works facility. It's still kind of up in the air if that's going to get completed this year, but it is something we're working towards possibly this year with some funding, some savings that Dan had elsewhere. We finished implementing badge access at all the remaining doors here at City Hall, and then we just continue to do our annual network security audits and our cybersecurity and user training, which is KnowBe4 that most people get an email to and watch a video, and there's monthly phishing tests that go out to kind of see if people are clicking on things. So that brings me to two of the general fund accounts, utilities and IT repairs and maintenance. This is on page 94 in the draft budget book. At least it was in the book that I received. Utilities are all, think of all the wireless telephones, televisions, wide area networks, and all the connectivity, the internet connection for all departments in the city. That's what all is billed out of that utilities account. And IT repair and maintenance is a lot of break fix throughout the year, things you just cannot plan for. Broken printers, broken monitors, computers that need repaired, and that's the funding that we use to do those type of things. Are you guys able to find that on page 94? Was it there? I see you flipping.
Yes.
Okay. The next account, it goes into capital improvement. It's on page 180 and 181. And these first set of account numbers here are basically just the computer and printer life cycle replacement plans.
Yeah, so I think our numbering is different than yours.
Okay,
So-
I can pull up, let's see. Have it up.
Last line on 81.
Oh, there, yeah, 130, last line on 81, yeah.
Oh, okay. But there's several accounts there under administration, under fire, under judicial, and so forth. And basically, we replace all computer. Oh, that's what I get for trying to. So we replace computers on a 5-year life cycle generally. We do have discussions every 5 years with those departments to see if we can extend the life of any computer. Sometimes we even replace computers sooner than 5 years if needs have changed or if a device becomes problematic. And printers, we give a 7-year useful life to. Same thing there. We do follow up and see if we can extend life. Just as a general rule, that's how we plan for the replacements. Then I'm showing on page 181, it's all the contractual expenses that we budget for out of IT under that account number 6210. This is basically all the subscriptions and contracts and maintenance agreements for the different software and hardware that are located in the various departments. So there's all the different departments and how much each department has for those contractual and maintenance agreements.
So while you're there,
Yeah.
can you explain why there is a significant, a 34, almost 35% increase from last year to next year, but then it goes back down?
Yeah.
So what's the?
So I'm making a little bit of an assumption here, but if you look in the budget book, there's a line item under Public Works that it says for design services, and I'm not exactly sure what that is, but it didn't come from my budget, from what I submitted.
Oh, so is this the planning for the new building and it got put in here? Got it, okay.
So
Yeah,
that's
Michelle's
why-
standing
that's
up
why
in the
it
back for
showed,
those watching
but it
online.
wasn't what I submitted in
Okay.
my IT budget, and I wasn't sure what that line item was.
Okay, so you don't own that dollar
Correct.
amount? Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes. One page, should be one page down, under account 6330 is all of the different projects that we have scheduled for fiscal year '26 in the IT department. You'll see the top one there is the fiber again for the Public Works building that we just spoke. We're trying to complete it this year, but it is budgeted for next year to get that installed, to get that building on the city network. And it's quite the cost savings. I don't know if this has ever came up in discussion, but I've had people ask, why would you put conduit in and install your own fiber to get that basically over to the police department is what we're doing just right across the street. But if you look at what AT&T or Charter will charge you, there's about a 3-year return on investment. After 3 years, it's money in the bank after that, owning our own fiber over to that building. So that's on that. Speaking with BOLA and truthfully other cities that we support, AI is a big topic of discussion anymore, and some of the use cases and some of the ways we could implement it. So working with BOLA, we spoke with department heads, and I don't remember the staff, but there were key staff working with department heads. We decided we're going to budget for Copilot for 365, deploy those this year and provide some training for those people. And while I don't know what all the use cases are just yet for all of those, I'm hoping everybody comes with their ideas, but we bought, I think it's 22 licenses, if I remember correctly, that we bought of Copilot for 365. The next one is, it's Microsoft Defender Advanced Email Security. So basically we have pretty standard email security right now that comes with Office 365 and some of the caveats with it. So if you get an attachment in an email, it'll send it right through without actually scanning that attachment. Or if you get an email with a URL, it doesn't look at that URL, it just sends the email right through. And what Defender will do for us, it actually puts them in this sandbox environment to where it'll go to that URL and see if it's malicious before it ever lets the email through. It'll look inside the attachments in that same sandbox environment to see if it's malicious. And our hope is to stop even more of those type of emails from getting through to our end users with that product. The wireless access points here in the city are up for replacement. They're 8 years old at this point. They're on wireless 6 or 5 for the most part. Some are at 6. We're going to Wi-Fi 7. when we upgrade, we should see some increased speeds, at least on newer devices, because of that. And so that's why we're upgrading age and just technology, kind of driving that. We have a few, I think it's like 12 standalone versions of Microsoft Office. We don't have Office 365. It's mostly the shared computer scenario where there's multiple users that use that computer, and it could get really expensive to buy everybody that uses that shared computer license. So we just put Office on the computer itself, and those have, right now it's Office 2019, which is end of life at the end of this year. So we're upgrading Office on those 11 or 12 installs. We have our third-party network security audit coming up this year. We basically do a third-party network audit every 3 years where we'll hire a third-party company to come in, kind of a set of ethical hackers, scan us from the outside. They'll come on the inside, scan, they'll look at our policies and make recommendations. And this is that third year. Usually we self-audit every 2 years and then just do a third-party on that City Hall, the video surveillance server here, it's, all servers get a 7-year useful life. It's at that point right now, it's 7 years old. So it's up for replacement this year. In the fire department networking closet, there's a smaller UPS, a backup battery for the networking equipment that we're gonna replace next year. Public Works has a network switch that is 8 years old, that is up for replacement based on its life cycle. And then every year we look at city-owned cell phones, and once they get to be 3 years old, we look at upgrading them. You could do it for free or almost nothing, but very low cost once they get to that age, because the provider wants you to get a new phone anyhow, right? So that's all of our projects that we had for fiscal year '26. It. Questions?
Well, I'm going to ask the question that I ask a version of every year. So your stuff's sort of spread out through all the departments, and it's, I mean, some of the lines look sort of flat, but we're adding a lot of things. So what are we taking away, or how do we really trust that
Yeah.
we can monitor all the new IT that we're adding?
So I have this all laid out in spreadsheets, line item by line item, where I could go, account by account. I plan out for 5 years, and it's usually somewhere between a 3 to 5% increase on things like contractual items or computer replacements. We're actually seeing close to a 5% increase now. The account where it is not the same every year is this one that we charge all of our projects to under 6330, and that's just because replacement life cycles are different, and some years this account can be a lot, and the next year it could be low, but overall, this is really my only account that fluctuates a lot. The rest of it is a gradual 3 to 5% increase year after year that I can, and even this I plan out 5 years on the budget. It's just it varies on what's up for replacement from year to year. So I don't think I answered your question.
Well, I ask it every year because I
Yeah.
think, well, maybe there, it's just harder for us as elected officials to monitor whether we need all these things. And so I guess as I've said in prior years, I think we just have to trust that our city staff and the IT department are working really well to make sure that we're just using and adding helpful and necessary
Yeah.
IT things.
I definitely meet with BOLA. I meet with every department head every year. We go through what I currently have in their budget for an estimated budget, and then go through the future years to see what they have. So I get feedback, and I meet with Michelle, and then I meet with BOLA to go through the budget in detail. I do have, literally hundreds of line items behind every one of these accounts that I could show exactly where that dollar amount comes from in more detail if I need to. Other than that, yeah, I guess we do support 3 cities, so it is a thing where we'll see what some other cities are doing. And I get outside of the 3-city box, right? I'm part of, there's this IT manager group, and it's all the IT managers in the St. Louis region that we stay in touch with each other, go out and have meetings and talk about what other cities are doing. There's an email group where we bounce ideas off one another to see what other cities are doing, and it's a good resource from that perspective. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not
well,
sure what else I could
no,
say
that's great.
about
No,
it.
that's great. Thank you for
Yeah.
attempting to answer. And actually, and I just want to say that I think it's a really good thing that we have this, this coordination with 3 cities and that you
Yeah.
serve 3
Well,
of us.
I
and that
appreciate
You
that.
have a lot more knowledge of what's going on in other places. So,
Okay.
other questions from Alderman Gould?
I mean, I'm encouraged to see that you're looking into how departments could leverage AI tools. I mean,
Yeah.
those are, what's coming on the scene now is pretty incredible. I'm curious, as you start to look at that, anything that's Microsoft-based is always going to be more expensive. It's going to be somewhat clunky. It's going to be, so there are other tools out there.
is.
I'm just curious on whether or not you've looked into some of the other tools that, and maybe this is as you get more familiar with how the departments could use it,
Yep.
you could start looking at other ones that are maybe less expensive for subscription or even free as long as they're secured.
Yeah, so I could tell you what's driving the co-pilot here, and it is from a security standpoint.
Yeah.
So we've looked at the Chat GPTs. Jim and I wouldn't make much sense here. We're not a Google customer.
If we were Google, yeah.
And then you get into some like department-specific AIs that are, like I know police has this AI that I've talked about more than once that can help them write their traffic reports
Right.
and stuff. The reason why we're really keying in, and I believe we should standardize on Copilot, it's from a security reason. So say you're using Chat GPT and you ingest data into whatever that is into Chat GPT,
Right.
you pretty much just made that data public.
Right.
And so there's a hole there, right? That even though I understand it and you understand it, I don't think everybody understands. And it's something I actually lose sleep over, this piece of it.
Sure.
Understands how easy it is to quote unquote leak data unknowingly out of your network. The other thing, when you're using something like Chat GPT, it doesn't see your internal data unless you ingest it into
Right.
that engine. Where if you're using Copilot for 365, it accesses all your internal data. It can look through
Yeah, the
emails.
closed workspaces is critical for that.
Yeah, and it keeps it in your Microsoft tenant. It doesn't let that data leak out, and it follows Windows permissions. At a high level, I'll leave it at it follows Windows permissions. So if I open up Copilot and I ask Copilot a question, it's only able to access areas on the network, server, SharePoint, OneDrive, mail, that I have access to already. I will be denied access to areas so some people kind of get nervous thinking, because it is powerful. I've tested a few things like, hey, how is this employee doing? And I realized the places that Copilot's looking at that I would never think of to go look at. It's almost snooping, quite honestly, when you get into it at that level. And so part of the project of implementing this is looking at that security before you ever deploy, and trying to shore up your data to make sure there's less chance of that happening. Not that you shouldn't have access to it, but it's almost reviewing who has access to what and ensuring that the data's secure at that level. Because once you release something like an AI engine on it, it's kind of fair game after that to find that data. So from a security perspective, to kind of guard the internal data, I'll agree with you. I use ChatGPT personally. I really like ChatGPT. But from a security perspective, I feel Copilot is especially if you're a
100%.
365 user already, it's to me the best choice from a security perspective, is where I guess that decision came from.
And I know some of the other cities you support are on the Google
Yes.
Google Suite. And I know we've talked over the years about, when and if and should consider migrating away from, if the departments aren't using the Office suite tools. You know, we could look at potentially down the road, but I'm just curious on the cities that are in the Google platform that are secure, right?
Yeah.
Secure Google platforms, what your experience is with
So
that.
Richmond Heights are Google Workspace customers, and they use the Google Workspace features pretty heavily. The meetings, the chat, and all of that. Some people use Gemini a little bit. They create agents, Gemini agents that like you could give it your police. There's someone in police. His name's Shane Placeway. He does it, and he puts like the general orders for police into this agent, and then for new officers, or I guess even old officers that don't know, they can go to this agent and ask this agent questions about their general orders, and instead of having to find it or maybe go to whoever their supervisor is to find that information. The one thing I'll say about Google G Suite, it has became from a cost perspective the same cost as Office
Okay.
365 at this point. That was not always true, and that's probably a development since, for whatever reason, since the pandemic in 2020. But every year, we have seen a price increase, and at this point, we're signing 3-year agreements with G Suite actually to lock in that price, because if we don't, the price goes up year after year, and it's on par with 365 as far as price point goes right now,
know.
when you compare the two. And just talking with staff, the point of contention always with going with Google over 365, it comes down to Excel, right? Nobody wants to give up
100%.
Excel.
The finance department always wants
Yeah,
Excel.
well, and I can tell you in Richmond Heights that our full Google Workspace, they have over half their staff, we pay for an Office license, so just so
Right.
they can have Excel still. So it's even elevates the cost even more when you do something like that.
That's fair. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Again,
question.
another benefit of having you
Yeah.
oversee several cities, bring those learnings to us.
Anything else? No. Alderman Code.
Question about, so we're upgrading video surveillance servers and we're adding more video surveillance with some of the work you do with the police. How are we looking as far as capacity on our storage servers, as well as any processing needs we have because of the increased use in video, which I'm assuming is driving up file size storage?
So our camera system, it's a Vigilon, they have their own video servers. They're not on like the servers that the file shares are on. And so when you buy a Vigilon video surveillance appliance, it includes, so many terabytes of storage. And once you hit that, the only way to increase it is to buy either a bigger one, like swap it out, or add on. So it's just something we monitor as time goes on. A lot of what you see here, there's no new cameras. It's just the server that there was 2 projects. There was one we did this year where we had a second server to Brentwood Park, and that was because from when we first spec'd the server and cameras for that park in the planning phase, we added more cameras after the fact, and it made that server no longer capable of storing, at least for a 30-day retention period, all the video we needed. So we budgeted and added a second server this year so we could get our retention period back to 30 days. And then this one at City Hall, this one here at City Hall is just replacing an aged surveillance server that the version of is going to no longer be supported after this year.
So it's an age issue more than a capacity issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it really only becomes a capacity issue when you're adding cameras. And I don't think I have any additional cameras this year. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Larry.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I think that takes us to planning and development, and Whitney?
So, good evening. So I'll go over our accomplishments so far for the year and then get into the revenue and expenditures that we're requesting. So from January to September, there were 1,536 permits and 7,128 inspections. Of those, 915 were plan review services and 4,940 inspections on construction projects. The residential occupancy permits were 621, and between January and September, and 2,188 occupancy inspections. Code enforcement then provided an additional 694 inspections for a total of 282 code enforcement cases. And we have the continuation of the architectural design guidelines. Those were adopted. The residential were adopted on August 13th. And we are working on the commercial side, which we will send out, I believe, tomorrow, that we're scheduling the open house for the commercial on October 14th at the community center. We also have pending before the board is the adoption of the 2024 codes. And those were presented at the Public Works Committee at June, July, and August, and we held numerous workshops with contractors and the multifamily developments in the area. There was 12 conditional use permits and site plan review and text amendments and a rezoning request at the Planning and Zoning Commission. There are 27 projects that were been reviewed at the Architectural Review Board and 14 projects at the Board of Adjustment between January and September. All of that included drafting and sending out approximately 78 different public notice to meet the legal requirements. We also presented text amendments at the Public Safety Committee to address policies for the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Americans with Disability Act and for the dance studio. That is a special review required by the code at the Public Safety Committee. And in the future, it's one of those things we want to change. We also do work well with our police department and fire department in reviewing, particularly the fire department, reviewing fire systems. And we've had 9 floodplain permits and 12 block party permits that we also route to everyone. We've also had and reviewed 617 active business license for renewal. And of that, 74 were new. We'll review those against the zoning code. And we also coordinate with the fire department on the new ones for occupancy inspections because commercial requires fire occupancies. We coordinate with the St. Louis County on the community development block grants, and we also implemented at the Public Works Committee the LOMO April, which as part of the 2024 will become permanent as part of that code update. We also worked with Michelle Boyer and the Parks Department, Eric, on getting the designation of the bronze and working towards the silver. Monday has a text amendment regarding the solar energy, so that's coming up. And we've issued the RFQ and entered into a new contract for grass and weeds abatement, and our assistant, Jessica, has provided notary services for 27 residents. The department provides professional support to the Board of Aldermen, the Architectural Review Board, the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Site Plan Subcommittee, the Public Works, Ways and Means, Board of Adjustment, the Redevelopment Corp., the Economic Development Sales Tax Board, Public Safety on those 2 specific projects. And in 2026, with the adoption of the new codes, we would look to establish or reestablish the Board of Appeals for Building Codes. The 2026 goals and objectives include providing superior development and application processing and permitting and inspections, continue with the development of the architectural guidelines, and next year we would have text amendments along with that, and continue making progress in the support in the long-term floodplain management and redevelopment goals of the Manchester Road corridor. The revenue highlights, you can see here, this year we're estimating 1.659. So we've proposed 1.675 for next year, a slight increase. Building permits, we kept at 250, as we've discussed. We are seeing a little bit of a slowdown right now, just because of the tariffs and the cost of the new materials. So we wanted to be conservative in moving next year to see how that played out. And most of the other things are kept in line with last year's budget, with only a slight increase where at 1%. Salaries were, I'm seeking for the reclassification of the open code enforcement position. And with the elimination of the part-time permit clerk, that we have a city planner position that would assist in the planning and review of projects, reviewing projects at the Architectural Review Board, or proposing the text amendments so that it be staff review and doing those reviews. And general zoning questions from residents and applicants that I receive on a day-to-day basis. We did increase the legal fees from $1,500 to $30,000 to $30,000 due to the ongoing code issues that we've been having and zoning issues related to the projects before the Board of Adjustment and at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Engineering costs were lowered from $36,000 to $30,000. Largely, that is due to that since we adopted the uniform code, that eliminated the need for engineering on the resident side and therefore also on our side if they just meet the code requirement. And generally, the miscellaneous contractual expenses was also lowered. We increased it this year to 125 from previous years that were at 100. That was for the development of the architectural design guidelines. We're expecting that to end by the end of the year. So I've lowered it back down to 100,000. So, and everything else was pretty much kept in line with this year's budget. That was from our City Hall selfie day, and it includes courts, so that's not all of our staff, but if you have any questions, yeah.
So thank you, and you might not believe it, but I don't have any questions, so I'm going to see if any of my, oh wow, so neither does Alderman Gould. Alderwoman Goat.
I have one small question, because you kind of touched on it already in the legal expenses, so it's the ongoing case for this year, and then I noticed it stays at that higher $20,000 for the next 2 years. Is that just with all the anticipation?
Yes. We wanted to see, we're seeing more of the legal expenses for this year. We wanted to see how that plays out, upping it to $30,000. If we don't see it go up that high, we can adjust it for the later years, but we just wanted to keep it consistent at this point.
Okay, that makes sense. Perfect, thanks. Also, I do think your biggest win was those guidelines. Those were great.
You'll have to come for the commercial ones now.
Okay, thanks, Whitney. So now moving on to BOLA.
Good evening. I am presenting a number of departmental reports, budgets that aren't necessarily administration. I've taken the liberty of presenting for judicial, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I've asked Chris to help me on that. I'm also covering legislative, but the primary ones that I'm going to focus on the most is administration, municipal operating expenses, and community services. We will be making these presentations available to the Board of Aldermen, so if you all want to go back and review it as we're going through this process, you have the ability to do so. And I'm sure Alderman Gould would be happy to hear that we have tried to maintain consistency in the design. So Michelle Boyer has been very instrumental to helping us make sure we do that. So starting off with administration, on this slide is the mission statement, which is to provide leadership management, financial planning information, and policy implementation, basically to support the elected officials in implementing their vision and their goal for the city of Brentwood, making certain that we are financial stewards of the money that has been entrusted onto us to help make informed decisions, making sure that we have a fiscally sound organization and follow generally accepted financial management principles, look for efficiencies, embrace technology, and continue to provide excellent services to our residents. And then the rest of that talks about risk and inventory management, tax licensing, acquisition management, and economic development. The city administrator has a role in that and making sure that we continue to be a progressive community that is known as the City of Warmth. Next 13 items are the goals and objectives for the administration department. As you know, the administration department consists of other sections. Within that, there's finance, there's HR, even though Eric is the primary lead on sustainability, it's still a section within administration. There's always communications as well. So those are the divisions within administration. There are a lot of accomplishments, and those are on pages 81 through 84. I just wanted to highlight the different things that staff members have worked on throughout the year. I want to brag on the team and overall brag on all our staff members in the city. They do an awesome job and help make my life a little easier. So I am thankful for all of them. So starting with the expenditure overview, there are no new positions in administration. However, there has been a reclassification of the deputy city clerk to the city clerk, and we've talked about Octavia and how when I first started, Octavia was my first deputy city clerk, and we're happy to have her back, and it's been tremendous because there hasn't been, it's been flawless so far. So thank you. Larry talked about how we want to embrace greater technology and AI. And, I do meet with Larry monthly, and he talks about things that other cities are considering. And I know a number of us are using different AI subscriptions out there that we're personally paying for on our own. So the ability to secure our data, I think is a worthwhile expenditure by using Microsoft Copilot. And we talked about this at the management team meeting and trying to make sure that there is true use for departments. And we're not giving every staff member a subscription to this. It's just key personnel, maybe a department director and assistant, that we feel that they will truly use it and we will see dividends as a result of that. Salaries to some items that Eric mentioned, minor 0.21 decrease in that. Employee benefits, that also is going down because of the comprehensive review that was undertaken to make sure that we are truly showing the plan level that each person has, whether it's just individual coverage or family or spouse or dependent. So that is going down. Where we're seeing increases is our professional staff and the membership that they have with the different professional organizations. and how that continues to benefit the city long-term. So we're seeing 44.28 increase. There's very little mileage reimbursement that we're expending. It's just really our membership with all the different professional organizations and how that continues to benefit the city. Then we have miscellaneous contractual. I believe you all would agree as well that hiring the sales tax monitoring consultant is worthwhile expense for the city. They have truly assisted us in even discussions with St. Louis County from a couple of years back. And then the other things that we pay for out of this, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, the Government Finance Officers Association, and then we have dues and subscriptions. And despite that, we're seeing a decrease in that. But overall, in administration, we are seeing just a 1.7.8 reduction in total expenditures over the prior year. Larry talked about computers when they've reached the end of their useful life, so there are some funds being allocated in administration for the replacement of staff computers and printers. Next is community services, and this is a budget that's really overseen by Michelle Boyer. So in here we talked about the Pulse earlier, and it's been a ongoing discussion at the Communications Committee. We talked with the city attorney, Jim Hetledge. Publications that legally we are required to continue to publish, we will continue to do those in the county, and like public notices. For the budget coming up, there's a public notice requirement that we will post. But we're going to be very careful and not go as robust as we did with the poll. So I expect that there will be some savings there. But I think we'll be bringing back some information to the Communications Committee now that we have a legal opinion on what we need to do. But that expense remains flat. Then we have all the other events that we undertake to engage with our public. The annual open house, the annual employee appreciation luncheon, the seriously, wildly attended monthly coffee with the mayor. And then ADA accommodations for public meetings when we do have them. The quarterly residential paper shredding, which our residents love. The quarterly electronics collection day, and then sustainability initiatives. So that's then the newsletter. We do see a 50% increase due to just general cost increase. Michelle reminds me that I think we're scheduled to release, she's working on the next publication coming out, but that has become more robust than it used to look. So kudos to Michelle on that. Then miscellaneous contractual, minor reduction in that, and I list everything that's covered in that. One significant project that I want to mention that we're going to continue to undertake next year is the comprehensive logo and branding development. And we've been working very closely with Alderman Gould and the Communications Committee to roll out that RFQ coming up here soon. Last item on there is the festival expense, the annual Brentwood Days. I asked Eric to help me understand why that cost went up a little, and he gives the explanation that's on screen. Obviously, we've had a change in the operations to the carnival rides, and we've moved from a free model to charging for rides last year, and that continued this year. And even though that expenditure did increase, the revenues also increased because we're now charging. And then we have all these inflation-related expenditures over there. But overall, there's an 18.8% increase in that line item. Under personnel, we have employee benefits, and those items on the screen are what is covered in there. An increase of 6.13%. No increase for retirement benefits, no increase in utilities, minor, very minor, slight increase under insurance, no increase in advertising or accounting. legal services, miscellaneous contractual, but we are seeing an increase in repairs and maintenance for all our IT equipment. I know that, thank goodness for the help desk that we have. We see a lot of our IT staff who come to City Hall to help us. There have been days where I can't, my computer doesn't power up. It's not a time for celebration, because that means I'll be working late. So they have been very helpful to address that. Then we have training, no increase in the remainder of those line items that are showing up on the screen. Legislative is really the elected officials and the appointed officials, the mayor and board of aldermen, whose pay is set by ordinance and they're paid monthly. Planning and zoning, they're paid upon attendance at meetings. Same goes for board of adjustments. And then there's related benefits to their compensation. And, you know, planning and zoning pay fluctuates because either there's a vacancy, they don't attend the meetings for whatever conflict, or we don't have as many people as we did on those committees. Then we have capital expenses, iPads for elected and appointed officials, and we're not looking to replace those anytime soon. You all are taking good care of the ones that have been issued to you over the past several years. Then judicial. So the Brentwood Municipal Division Court and Violations Bureau, they are committed to providing the independent administration of justice. This department is headed by the municipal judge. And then we have our court administrator, Chris Schwartz, and Chantel. And there's a list of all the goals and objectives for them and the accomplishments, meetings, reporting deadlines, whether it's annual, biannual, or monthly, and maintaining their certifications for the 2 staff members there. No new positions. We're seeing a 6.1 increase in salaries for full-time. There is a part-time employee that assists them, and I believe that the 1,300 will be restored back to that line item, because I know I do see that individual on court dates. You're noticing that the employee benefits has decreased. Similar explanation. Particularly, I think when your child hits the age of 26, they roll off your health plan, and I believe that's the situation here. Overall, the department expenditure, we're seeing a 3.78% increase. There are dollars for replacement of scanners and computers. We don't expect them to reach the end of their useful life, but we just don't want to be caught flat-footed if they were to stop working. So you might see that money roll over into 27 if we don't have to use it in 26. Questions?
Great, thank you, Bola. Again, I don't have any pressing questions. Alderwoman Goad?
Yes. One small question on page 94 of the booklet. There's a one-time bump in, that's where you go in the bump in up to 19K, but then it drops back down. Is it like a one-time thing that we're
What
bumping
line
up
are
that
you?
high? It's the repairs, yeah, because you said you needed more needs, so I just wondered if that needed to be continued on for more.
Oh, yeah.
We'll reevaluate that during the next budget cycle.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's more of a placeholder.
Exactly.
Perfect. Very nice presentation, thank you.
Any more questions?
I-
Oh, okay, Alderman
sorry.
Gould.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Just a general comment or question. I love that you all have taken a sharp pencil to figuring out whether benefits are being budgeted for appropriately, and I like that we're able to kind of see maybe some reduction in those expenses. Do we run a risk, though, if personnel changes, and then they participate in benefits that we've, put a number on for that, maybe that position. Is there, or when we've done that, have we factored in some percentage of flexibility in that? I'm seeing a head shake.
Okay.
So, no risk. Again, I applaud the intent behind it. I just want to make sure that we're,
Yes, we did take into account the opportunity of some of the people changing in those positions and potentially acquiring a higher level. So there are some who would have had lower levels that we actually just built in for higher levels on the off chance of these types of fluctuations.
okay, wonderful, thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
Great, okay. Well, thanks to we're through a chunk of the budget, and more to come at the end of the month, but we're through a bit of it. And then as you're walking back to your seat, Bola, I think you're going to talk about this Blue Shield City grant agreement? Or, oh, okay.
So at the last special meeting, Board of Aldermen meeting, the police department applied for a grant for radios. So in the budget, there are funds to allow them to purchase radios, but they were awarded $50,000. I'm trying to bring up my laptop. They were awarded $50,000. So what they would like to do is to use that $50,000 to buy radios and keep what's in the budget to buy additional radios, because then that gets them towards the total number of radios that they need to buy. So that will be another year or so before they fully buy all the radios that they need for the department. So the reason why we're putting it on this agenda is there needs to be a resolution that's approved by the board. And so we wanted you all to review it and then take it to the board on Monday so that we can sign the agreement and accept the grant funds.
Any questions for Bola? Is there a motion to accept the 2026 Missouri Blue Shield Grant Award?
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And now this is our second opportunity for citizen comments. So if anyone in the room or if there's anyone online who has a hand raised.
I don't have anyone online.
Okay, great. Well, seeing no further business, this meeting